These things did not have disc brakes standard. This is a Honda CT110 headlight bucket. Probably the coolest thing in the world is this Chile number plate. Welcome to this episode of Small Bike Stuff. A very, very exciting episode. If you're a long-time watcher of the channel, you will know that this thing was assembled mostly by me with help from a lot of people. It's got parts from all around the world, and it's currently owned by a gentleman called Kane, and he lives in Hamilton, New Zealand, and he's a lot to do with the motorcycle industry, so I'm glad it's still got a good home. So this is a Lifan 125cc. This is a semi-automatic 4-speed, and the whole point of having a semi-automatic on a bike like this but getting a bigger capacity is that you've still got that extra hand-free. When I used this bike and I used to ride it a lot, I would love to possibly pull out a camera and film people while I was riding, if it was safe to do so, on a closed road in Mexico, but it just kind of gave you that extra freedom, and it was homage to what the Chile originally had. Up here you've got a 22-ish millimeter carburetor, and a unifilter which feeds straight down into the intake manifold there. Originally when I built this thing, it's we'll get into the modifications more later, but it's got a chopped frame, which we'll say right now, and that means the frame's way shorter here, so the output of the tank, which sits kind of just above that Honda the word Honda there on the Honda Chile logo, it's way too low to work in stock form. You'd run to about half a tank and this thing would run out. Now with a pulse pump sitting underneath there that's got vacuum pressure from the manifold, it basically never runs out and you can run the tank dry. Now these things did not have disc brakes standard. They came with drum brakes front and rear. There was a 3-speed and then an automatic version, and then there was a 70cc version as well as a 50cc version, but apart from that, in New Zealand they really only came with 4-spoke wheels. There's a few exceptions, but overseas you can get these 3-spoke rims. So these 3-spoke rims I acquired from Southeast Asia, and sitting on, because it's a 3-piece wheel, inside a 4.7 inch wide rim, and the tyre here is a 100 by 90 by 10. Really odd sizing to pick up when I first got it, but I did manage to find some Michelins. Now when I got the parts for this to make it a lot wider than it originally is stock, they're usually running a 3.5 inch by 10 tyre stock. This thing here on the rear is running a 110 by 80 by 10, but it's stretched quite a lot. If I come around the back there, you can see. And this is a 6.1 inch rim. He asked if I wanted it to be disc or drum, and for some reason I just had this affinity with having a drum somewhere, and the rear was the logical place. So it does, it's got a drum on the rear. You can get disc rear ends, but it just seemed like it was overkill for me. So the controls on these are dominated by this unique single switch block on the left side. On the right hand side there's literally just the throttle with some beautiful Biltwell grips, a front disc brake lever, and there's the master cylinder there as well. But then you'll notice the handlebars are really kind of narrow. That's also a custom thing that we'll chat about soon. I didn't want to clog up the handlebars when this was built, so I got this switch block from AliExpress. I think it was from China. The top left button, you're looking at the kill switch if you hold it down. Then you have the left turn signal, the next button. The middle button is the high-low operation for the headlight. The next one down, almost to the bottom there, we're looking at the right turn signal. So you can turn them both on individually, which means you can have hazard lights. And then the bottom one is the horn, and the horn is located just down here on the side of the bike. The rear brake lever is just as per standard in front of your right foot peg, and this is kickstart only. There's no electric start on this bike. 4-speed semi-automatic. This is a Chinese repower, if we're being totally honest with you, but it does have Honda logos on the side just for, because that's what we wanted to do. I did it, and Kane's happy to keep doing it, and too bad. We know it's not a Honda, but none of us really care. It's reliable and it works. It's nice to have that logo on the side. 4-speed, all up. At the very bottom you've got neutral, up to first, second, third, fourth. I don't believe it's a revolving box on the Lifans, unlike some of the Hondas. This is going to be the longest part of the video, modifications. It's had a lot done to it. I'm going to start at one end and move backwards and try cover everything if I can remember. This is only stuff that I remember doing. Kane's done a few different things along the way that I'll try remember. Front end at the top, this is a Honda CT110 headlight bucket. It's got an LED headlight from AliExpress, and these are kind of the typical daymaker headlights, or they're advertised as daymakers, and people put them in their Harley Davidson headlight buckets and big cruiser headlights. But yeah, they work really well in a CT headlight bucket. They fit in the original chrome rings, which has been replaced by Kane, I believe, since he got it. It was a little bit dinged up, or I think I'd been actually painted in my ownership. It was a different color, same color as the rims possibly. The windscreen is aftermarket. That just bolts on to the standard headlight mount, and the ignition is actually mounted in the top of the headlight bucket there as well, so you can see the key sitting there. If we go back to the handlebars, these things here, well, it's a perfect angle to see the shape of them. They kind of come up and then backwards. Front disc brake, this assembly effectively came from a aftermarket disc brake front end for the Challys and the Daxes, but the actual front end itself, this whole fork assembly, came from Thailand. It came from CDM shop in Thailand. CDM shop's located in Bangkok. I'll put their details up now. They've got Instagram and Facebook. To order these was a real big mission. This was about a solid 6 to 8 months of messaging back and forth. And even then, they didn't believe that I was going to turn up and buy them until I arrived in southern Thailand, because I was on a trip from the bottom to the top, and physically went into a bank and put money into this guy's account, and then he got them machined from that day onwards. So within the three or four days of us riding from southern Thailand through to Bangkok, these had been machined and put together. Those were brazed, so it might look like a bad weld, but it's not. It was brass brazing along there, so that's why it looks kind of odd. And the disc brake front end, this came with a disc that was damaged when I shipped them home. So that's actually been replaced. I believe those are the actual stock discs you get on the Coleman mini bikes from the Walmart type shops in America. They had the same dimensions and just bolted on, so that was really cool. And then we've got a Brembo look-alike, I will be honest with you. I don't actually think it's a real Brembo brake down there, but it does work really well, and it's worked safely for years now, so it's doing the job. Rim, 4.7-inch wide rim on the 3-spoke hub. That 3-spoke hub, once again, did not really come out in New Zealand. They're mainly on the later 80s and 90s JDM Challys, which Thailand did get a few of. Leg shield has a few different stickers on it. This is an aftermarket leg shield, but just a reproduction one. The Honda Club Thailand badge is a real point of pride when I built this bike, because yeah, it's got the Honda logo and the Thai flag colours. This guard here is from a Honda Dax, so that's a Honda Dax front guard, and there's also a Honda Dax rear guard, but I'll just make sure I cover those both before I forget them. And they've been mounted on here. The original guards were much more flowy. They came down a lot further and kind of had a ducktail or a lip off the back, so that was changed. We'll get into the frame. So the frame itself, there's been about 4 centimeters, I'd say, out of the back, 4.5 centimeters out of the back, and the front is very similar. It's caused the front end to be raked back a little bit further than they are stock, and this end over here, yeah, it's a lot lower, so you're physically somewhat lower to the ground, but because I've kept the stock height with the suspension, what's actually been achieved here, or the effect that's been achieved, is the bike has a lot more ground clearance, so you could run this really beautiful pipe under here, which has been made from a whole bunch of different AliExpress pipes, basically chopped up, welded together, and yeah, that's the pipe there, which we might as well cover off because we're here now. So yeah, custom slash cut pipe made from a whole bunch of parts from overseas and welded by a gentleman here in New Zealand. But yeah, the frame has been chopped extensively, so it's a lot shorter, and if you compare it, I'll try to get a comparison photo on the screen now compared to a stock frame. That horn is literally just bolted there to one of the original Honda Chally leg shield mounts up inside the frame, and yeah, sounds cool. It's really loud. But we've got a seat here which was upholstered by a friend of mine, Kaz, who has a company called KP Upholstery, but he's doing things in different countries at the moment, so I can't say that you can go and get stuff made by him, but if you could, it'd be a good idea, because he does really, really high quality work there. So I said to him, do whatever you want, and he just took the seat and ran with it, put some gripper material in there from an MX seat in the middle, some beautiful stitching. I think there's some points on the seat where there's 4 bits of fabric stitched on top of each other, and it's all really smooth, really nicely made. The rear rack is from WeBike. I got one from Thailand originally, but it was super thin, and after putting something on it for about 12 minutes and going for a ride, it snapped. So this thing here's a lot nicer. It's a lot thicker. It is a tubular rack, it's just been chrome dipped, but it looks cool. It can actually hold stuff. And I believe it was DGR that there was a few things strapped onto the back there. Dax rear guard as well, which also has the tail light, the original stock tail light mounted onto the back there. And you've got LED turn signals up here as well, which I neglected to mention at the front, which are there on the side of the headlight. Alright, so this rear end had 2 or 3 different attempts to get it in the perfect shape, and eventually we kind of got it there with a lot of engineering involved that was not my skill set, so I had to get Kaz involved, and that all got realigned. There's a custom welded offset sprocket there at the front, and yeah, it's just running a really nice gold chain there, quite thick, quite strong. Putting the bigger 125 engine in there, running on a hub that has an extension and has rubber damping in there as well. You want to have a chain that can handle the lash or the drivetrain lash when you give it a bit of throttle or change down or stop or do any of those things. Probably the coolest thing in the world is this Chally number plate. This was acquired by a different person that owned a Chelly in Auckland, who then flicked this on and then sold his Chelly on, and I'm super thankful that Kane managed to pick this up as well. This ball bearing here was welded onto the side stand. Let me just spin this for you. It still works all these years later. Lots of rain, lots of bad weather, but yeah, keep it lubricated and it seems to do the job. You can chuck it back. Thanks, man. Overall, it's awesome to be able to see this bike again in the flesh. I'll give it a start and so you can hear it. I might actually get Kane to start it for you. And you can hear what the bike sounds like, but we won't be going for a ride in this episode. You'll have to wait for another one. But stay tuned. This won't be the last you'll see of the Honda Chelly, built by me, Callum, with the help of a lot of friends, but now under the awesome ownership of Kane here in New Zealand. I'd argue he's done a lot more for this bike than I have. He's ridden it a lot more, that's for sure. There we go, off choke. I wish you guys could smell this. Thanks for watching this episode. We'll see you next time.